back again. We're introducing you to Anna Parker-Naples, who is the brains behind our podcast.
But not the voice. That's you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us. You can see how professional Anna is by her backdrop.
Well, it used to be my airing cupboard. That's the big secret. My professional looking studio is actually where we used to keep the bedding.
Nice and warm then, nice and warm.
Very cozy.
So tell our listeners about, I don't know, your experience of working with us on the podcast and how we're doing at the moment.
So first of all, I think I can't really come on here and not share that within 4.5 hours of promoting the show, you've got yourselves to number 6 in the main UK business charts. Now, to put this in context, most shows don't reach any charts ever across any chart in any category or subcategory around the world. The main business chart is particularly competitive. And you've managed to get so much activity and support for your show in the first few hours that you've got into the top 10, which is just phenomenal. So to see yourself alongside people like, we've got Stephen Bartlett and Tim Ferriss and all sorts of amazing podcasts by the Financial Times and all sorts. And there you are, right smack in the middle of all of them, which is fabulous. So I'm really pleased for you. Really delighted.
Thank you. And bringing this podcast live has been something that Joe and I have sat with this idea for years. That I remember being a teenager reading like agony aunt columns, and I used to be like, oh, I'd love to be an agony aunt.
And now you are.
Yeah, and watching chat shows, and things like that. I remember doing that in my uni days. And in many ways, this is the more mature and grown up version of that. And having had that idea, and we've made false attempts at doing it, but finding you and your support to make this a reality has just been brilliant.
I think that's one of the exciting things, because I reached out to you, Anna, I think after the summer holidays, because I've been following you in your red branding for quite a few years now, and then I think I just thought we just need to do this. This is the year. It just felt like the time, and I spoke to Zoe and she's like, yeah, speak to Anna, let's find out. And when I spoke to you, you're like, yeah, what sort of time scale? I've got a slot on the 15th of November. And what's the other options? Actually, no, if we're doing this and I'm making this call, it's because we're going to do it. And we talked briefly about what we would need to do. And, Zoe and I, if we say we're going to do something, then we absolutely will do it. And I feel just so proud now that we're sat here only probably like 8 weeks afterwards, but you've walked us through, like handheld us, you and your team, through the process of, right, buy this equipment, use these links. And that is exactly what we needed. We just needed an expert to handhold us through every step of the process, and how you've cleaned up the audios. And like when we listened to it, and I just got a text from Zoe saying, this is hot. And I was like,
so we so I think that's an important thing to say, is that yes, we do all the production side for people, but actually it starts way before then, doesn't it? It starts much more with, I always see what we're doing is we are helping people change their lives one listener at a time. That's kind of my catchphrase. I'm helping leaders to get louder. So we get really clear on, well, why do you want a podcast? What's it for, really? So yes, it's that agony aunt part of you that wants to have kind of input and be a little bit famous. But how are you actually generating business and interest and trust through what you're doing? And I think that's been an interesting process, I think, for you both, to work out, well, what is the message? Who is it for? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts around that?
Well, it's helped us in lots of different aspects of business. Joe and I are multi-passionate. Like, we have been obsessed with coaching for 11 years now. And I think we said this last time, we genuinely spent hours and hours and hours talking about coaching clients, the training that we do, all of that. And so at any one point in time, we have 30,000 different ideas and directions that we can take our work in, because we're coach trainers. We have our own portfolio of people that we support through coaching. We supervise current coaches. We're helping coaches develop their businesses. Like, we have lots within our business. So how do you pick one thing to focus on when it comes to the podcast. And the conversations with you just really helped us to think about, well, where do we actually want to make the biggest difference? What's our mission? And it goes back to that. And our mission has always been to help spread the word of coaching and the power of transformation that coaching can bring to people's worlds. And we know that there's only so many clients we can coach alone. Our coaching training has always been about training other people to be great coaches so that they can take the reins and go and get their own portfolio of coaches. And so it, that really helped us to clarify that we absolutely need to help people to understand, is training to be a coach something that they want to do, and if so, how can we make it accessible for them to get in?
And Anna, I think what you've been great at is just cutting through
the crap
through the thousands of words to say, to say one sentence and to keep the pace on it. So right, okay, do this, and we're like, okay, right, so we do that and then come back. And I think it's had that really nice balance of, we've done what we said we would do, you've done what you and your team have done what you said you would do, which has enabled us to kind of meet the deadlines. And it's more than a podcast. So we, in choosing, us choosing to work with you and you choosing to work with us, it absolutely was that values alignment around. I knew that you would only work with people who did have that purpose-led, values-led approach, and that was really important for us. We wouldn't just work with anybody. And so, in celebrating what we're doing today, it's celebrating all of the people that have helped us get to where we are now, because we wouldn't be.
It's absolutely a team effort. It's a team effort, and you can have success with you don't need a huge audience to have success in the podcasting space, but the reach of the podcasting space, when you activate those people around you to support you, which doesn't just happen by you saying, hey, we launched a podcast today, because you've got to take people on that journey with you. When you activate people to support you, the knock-on effect of you having already reached number 6 is that people who would never have come across your work, who might not be searching for keywords around coaching, are going to see your artwork, are going to then read the headline of your show. They're going to then hear the intro before they then decide to listen. And so the way that I see, some podcast producers actually get a bit sniffy about, it doesn't matter what happens at launch, but I really believe it does, because the more eyes and ears we get on your show right now, the greater the number of people who are literally hearing your message. And that, why else would you do a podcast?
Well, we've been sharing this morning, like, if everybody that listens to our podcast and enjoys it, and we've had some raving reviews already, which is so encouraging and amazing to listen to, because it's all very well creating a podcast, right? But if everyone listens to it and thinks, all right, girls,
it's also that validation, isn't it, for what you're doing? Your work's powerful, but when you get people who don't necessarily understand your work coming back to you and saying, that really touched me and I'm really intrigued now, then you're getting something right.
And really, I think this first series is, it's just a very tiny tip of everything. So it's really about those introductory questions about for people who are thinking about training to be a coach. But there's a lot more depth. There's so many avenues that we can take our podcast for different elements of our audience, because we have people that are kind of curious about coaching, all the way through to people who've been trained and practicing for years. So it is that inspirational piece, because there's a lot of coaches who train to be coaches but actually struggle to get their coaching business off the ground, and a lot of we're doing this for those people as well, to be like, actually, like, it's taken us 11 years to do this, and how do you break through your own fears around visibility? Like when you said to us, right, set up a WhatsApp group, set up a Facebook group, I mean, it was properly triggering around what if nobody comes? Why would anybody come and join a group? Like, really was feeling that, and the fear of rejection, or just invisibility. And then when we had so many people join, we genuinely were like, oh my goodness, we already feel like this has been worth it, because it's to know. And you said to us, you won't believe it, you'll have people coming in. And then I saw somebody I went to uni with that I'm not in everyday contact with, and I was like, oh my goodness, how have they seen it? And that has value beyond business. It has just value around connection about how we continue to take coaching forward to help as many people as possible access it. I would love for children to be taught about coaching mindsets in schools. I would love for organizations to, not just to give coaching access to people, not just that are at the top of the organizations, but actually as part of their kind of psychological contract with people in organizations, and for people to not be labeled as sensitive or anything else, but just to give them access to it, to be able to train their own inner coach.
And all of those things, though, are so much more achievable to get your foot in the door, to open up opportunities to have conversations with people of a high level wherever you need to be in education or government, because you now have a top ranking podcast. And regardless of what happens, whether it drops or whatever, you always have had a top 10 podcast in the main business charts. So that's an accolade that will stay with you. That will be something that you promote and you put in your materials forevermore in your business whilst you're on this message. And what we see is that all sorts of amazing opportunities that you couldn't imagine happen off the back of getting your message out there in a really relatable, normal, and an authentic way. I know when we say the word authentic, sometimes it feels really inauthentic, but people really feel like they trust you and understand you so much more in a podcast than, say, watching a Facebook Live.
And we really are, I think we are approachable, and that's what people like about us is, we are just how we are inside and outside of work.
Yeah, and I think a podcast works for us in many ways because that is how we spend our time. Like, we are in conversation with our clients day in, day out, in intimate, deep conversations, helping them to achieve transformation, to get to where they want to go. And we're going to replicate that as much as we can in the podcast, in the conversations Joe and I have, and if we bring guests on in a future series, then we will do that. So I'm just, I'm so proud to have brought it to life today, and for it to be doing so well. So.
And I'm so pleased that we invested to do it with you. I think that it feels really aligned, and I would encourage, everybody that's kind of coming up, as well, training, setting their own businesses up, do it earlier. Don't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the thing. Podcasting is growing at a phenomenal rate, and at the moment you can have massive impact. In 3 or 4 years' time, that window is you're not going to get the same results that you would have now. And I think it's about, if you know that you are the kind of person who wants to have impact, who wants to change lives, this is a vehicle that really is doing that, and it feels very tangible that it's doing that when you get your podcast out there. So my question for both of you actually is what's been the biggest thing that surprised you so far about this process?
Honestly, the big, and this is a feeling good and feeling bad about it at the same time, is the support that we have been shown by people in our audience. Like, that's the biggest surprise. And I feel bad about that because I know our audience are amazing, and I've always known they're amazing because we have great conversations with them day in, day out. We've got loyal followers who are, who message us back on the weekly emails and communications we send. But there is still that shy, socially awkward inner child within me that, and I think I said this in one of my posts, I remember being 13 and inviting like the whole class to my 13-year-old birthday party, joint with Emma Peck, who is my friend, and hopefully she's listened today to my podcast. And I remember going to bed that night thinking, oh my God, like, what if no one comes? That's going to be so embarrassing, and till the very day of my party, those thoughts were in my head. And there is that piece inside when you go out for everyone, you're like, hey guys, can you help listen to my podcast? And
then there's tumbleweed.
There wasn't tumbleweed. There was 200 people literally flooding in to this podcast group that we'd set up. And it was a real moment of like, wow, like that is incredible. And that's the only way I can kind of put words.
Yeah, and what you'll see over the next couple of weeks is that your reach will go global by this evening. I'm fairly confident that by tonight we'll know exactly which countries you've charted in, even not just been listened to, but charted in. And I think that's what we want, isn't it? Particularly for in coaching of any sort, we want to know we've reached people. We want to know we've touched lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you know, for me, when I showed my son, he's actually the first one that rated it before he was supposed to.
I saw it. I've seen it.
Yeah, and he was sat next to me, And then he like saw it, and we did listen to it because I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to. Anyway, he just spontaneously hugged me. And I'll remember that forever, because, you know, we always go back to why did we start our businesses? Because we're totally passionate about coaching, because we believe it's transformational, but also because we were mums, young, you know, with young children, and we wanted to be able to work because we enjoy work and we enjoy supporting people, and we wanted to be present mums. We wanted the best of both. And whilst that hasn't always, you know, been easy, I did it because I felt like I could be proud of the fact that my job was to help other people be the best that they can be, their version of that, and identifying what it was. So for him to have that reaction when I haven't been there in some of the evenings last week, because I've been, you know, doing some of the prep stuff, and they helped choose the podcast music, so I wanted them to feel part of this. It was just really, really special. And that for me is that alignment of those two things. And I think it's important that we show that part of us as well, because it's also a really important part of our story. We are also wives, mothers, we've got, you know, daughters, we've got so many different identities. This is one of them that we're sharing with the world. And I don't know, maybe one day we'll interview our kids on the podcast.
I said to Daisy actually this week, I was like, oh, Daisy, you can come on my podcast if you want. And she's like, oh, amazing.
My kids are not down with that. They would have been when they were a few years younger. Now they just think I'm a bit embarrassing because
and also in amongst my son, you know, forgetting to take his homework and texting me to say the teacher's going to call me this morning because he forgot to take that in, and not being able to find the other one's lunchbox and drinks you know, container. We still managed to get number 6 in the business charts.
But that's real life, isn't it? And actually our businesses don't happen in a bubble, they happen around all the rest of those things.
And Zoe's here. She's travelled down from Bristol to be here today. That was like a 6 o'clock start,
which is very cool for me.
So you are in the same room together. That's very exciting.
Just to share it, because this is
a moment.
Yeah.
You know, what you'll see, or when you can see already the really huge, some quite famous names that you've already knocked off the charts. When in your life will you ever have a moment where your work is getting that recognition and validation? You know, alongside household names. It is amazing what we can do in this space when you get it right.
If anybody is thinking about starting a podcast, check out Anna and message her, because she's you've really helped us. And we're going to be hopping over now into our business lounge, where Anna's kindly doing an expert speaker session in there for our coaches in our membership around how to build your brand through using and launching a podcast. So thank you, Anna, so much. We really
congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you to those watching. We can see some comments, but we can't see who you are because we're using a piece of software that doesn't let us see who you are. But thank you for the support. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.